Imagine you are born, but instead of a normal flesh and blood creature, Mother Nature decides to mold you into a giant, furry Volkswagen Beetle with a spiked mace for a tail. Welcome to the Pleistocene epoch in South America, a time when everything is massive, angry, and incredibly hungry. You are a Glyptodon. You weigh 2 tons, you move with the speed of an arthritic grandmother, and absolutely every predator within a 100-mile radius wants to turn you into their next dinner. You might look at your massive domed shell and think you are an invincible god of the plains. You might believe that this armor will make you immortal. Well, spoiler alert, you are completely wrong. The ultimate humiliation waiting for you at the end of your evolutionary line does not come from razor-sharp claws or bone-crushing jaws. It comes from a bunch of hairless apes who just figured out how to play with fire. But let us not get ahead of ourselves. Let us start from the very beginning of your miserable, heavily armored existence. Being an invincible armored tank sounds like an incredibly cool concept, until you realize that in your early years, you are nothing but a mini-tank with a shell as soft as cheap plastic toys. When you first hatch out into this brutal world, your magnificent armor, which is made up of over 1,000 individual bony plates called osteoderms, has not fully hardened yet. You are essentially a walking, breathing bento box wandering around the grassy plains, frantically chewing on dry weeds. You cannot run. Your legs are laughably short and stubby, designed to carry a massive dome, not to sprint. You cannot bite back either. Your teeth are flat, peg-like structures hidden deep inside your jaw, strictly designed for mashing up tough roots and grasses. If a predator decides you look tasty, your only real survival strategy is to drop your belly flat against the dirt, pull your head back like a frightened turtle, and pray to whatever prehistoric gods exist that the attacker gets bored or breaks a tooth on your back. And oh boy, the attackers are everywhere. You are sharing your living room with some of the most terrifying killing machines evolution ever produced. Take the Smilodon, for example. This is not just a big cat. This is a 3-meter-long, muscle-bound nightmare equipped with canine teeth the size of kitchen knives. When a Smilodon looks at you, it does not see a majestic armored herbivore. It sees a giant meat pie wrapped in a slightly inconvenient crust. Then you have the terror birds. The name is not an exaggeration. These are 3-meter-tall, flightless birds from hell with massive, hatchet-shaped beaks designed to crack open skulls like walnuts. Imagine a giant, angry chicken that wants to murder you. That is your daily reality. Every single day of your youth is spent living in sheer, unadulterated terror, waiting for the moment your armor finally solidifies into the impenetrable fortress you were promised. Let us talk about the daily grind of just trying to stay alive in this cumbersome body. Breathing is a chore. Walking is an Olympic sport. Your shell is so unbelievably heavy that a significant portion of your daily calorie intake goes right back into just dragging it across the dirt. You are constantly hungry because grass and low-lying shrubs do not exactly pack a high nutritional punch. So you eat, and you eat, and you eat. You spend literally half your life with your face buried in the dirt, completely oblivious to the majestic sunsets or the sweeping landscapes around you. Your entire universe consists of the patch of weeds directly in front of your nose and the constant, paranoid scanning for the shadow of a predator. You cannot scratch your own back. You cannot groom yourself properly. If you get a terrible itch right in the middle of your massive dome, you just have to live with it. It is a slow, tedious, agonizingly dull existence punctuated only by moments of absolute, heart-stopping panic when something tries to eat you. And the worst part is, even if you successfully defend yourself, you do not get to run away triumphantly. You just stand there, panting, exhausted, waiting for the predator to give up, and then you go right back to eating dirt. You see, over millions of years, your species made a very specific and highly questionable evolutionary gamble. In the great role-playing game of life, you took every single one of your skill points and dumped them directly into the defense stat. You ignored speed entirely. You completely neglected agility. And honestly, looking at your tiny brain case, you did not put any points into intelligence either. You are an evolutionary brick. You exist simply to not be eaten. As you slowly munch on your fibrous prehistoric salad, grinding away hour after hour just to fuel your massive, ridiculous body, you feel a false sense of security building up. Year by year, your shell hardens. Your tail, covered in bony rings and ending in a heavy, spiked club, becomes a lethal weapon capable of shattering the leg of an unwary predator. You survived the vulnerable childhood phase. You are now a fully grown, 2-ton fortress of bone and muscle. You are a walking mountain. Imagine a Smilodon actually deciding to test your armor. It circles you, its massive shoulders rolling with power. You immediately drop down, protecting your soft underbelly. The giant cat leaps, its claws scraping uselessly against your bony dome, sounding like nails on a chalkboard but amplified 1,000 times. You swing your spiked tail blindly, a desperate, heavy thud that misses the cat but smashes a small tree into splinters. The Smilodon realizes this is too much work for a meal and slinks away. You survived. You feel a surge of prehistoric pride. You look at the Smilodon and you do not even flinch. You look at the terror bird and you just keep chewing your grass. You have reached the peak of your existence. You think you have won the game of life. You are truly invincible. Or so you think. The universe has an incredibly dark sense of humor. Just when you achieve absolute perfection in your specific, heavily armored niche, the rules of the game abruptly change. You spent millions of years preparing for an exam on how to fight giant cats and massive birds, but nature is about to hand you a test on dealing with cunning, tool-wielding primates. The sky is changing, the climate is shifting, and there is a new smell in the wind. It is the smell of wood smoke. It is the smell of sweat. It is the smell of a creature that does not need massive fangs or razor-sharp claws to tear you apart, because it has something infinitely more dangerous. It has an imagination. Congratulations, you have made it to adulthood. Your armor is now as hard as solid rock. You are a biological fortress. You are practically a god walking the earth. At least, that is what your tiny brain tells you. But then, about 14,000 years ago, the ultimate apex predator arrives in South America. They do not look like much. They are short, squishy, and completely hairless. They do not have massive fangs. They do not have venom. They do not have armor. They are just a bunch of naked apes walking on 2 legs, shivering in the cold wind. You look at them with your small, beady eyes and you feel absolutely nothing. You probably think they are just another weird, weak animal that you can easily ignore. But these naked apes, known as Homo sapiens, possess a weapon more devastating than any claw or tooth. They have unprecedented intelligence. They have strategy. They have the ability to coordinate in large groups. And most importantly, they have pointy sticks made of wood and stone. At first, you do not even register them as a threat. You just keep munching on your grass. But then, a group of these humans surrounds you. They do not attack your shell directly. They are not stupid like the Smilodon. They know that hitting solid bone is a waste of time and energy. Instead, they start throwing rocks to confuse you. They yell and scream, creating a terrifying noise that disorients your simple mind. You panic. You do the only thing you know how to do. You hunker down, plant your feet firmly on the ground, and tuck your head in. You brace for the impact on your back. But the impact never comes there. Instead, the humans approach your blind spots. They use long, heavy wooden poles as levers. They slide these poles under the edges of your magnificent shell. And then, with a synchronized heave, they push with all their combined strength. Suddenly, your world is turned completely upside down. Literally, you feel a terrifying moment of weightlessness, and then a heavy thud as your massive 2-ton body crashes onto its back. Your short little legs are flailing uselessly in the cold air. Your spiked tail is thrashing wildly, but it cannot hit anything because it is pinned beneath your massive weight. You are completely exposed. Your soft, unarmored belly, the one thing you spent millions of years trying to protect, is now pointing directly at the sky. And looking down at you are those squishy, hairless apes, holding their sharpened spears. The realization hits you, even with your tiny brain. This is the absolute end of the line. The humans do not waste any time. They strike precisely where you are weakest. It is a quick but brutal execution. Your invincible armor, the result of countless generations of evolutionary fine-tuning, is completely useless because you were simply flipped over like a giant, helpless beetle. But death is not the end of your humiliation. Oh no, the dark comedy of your existence is just reaching its punchline. If a saber-toothed cat had killed you, it would have eaten its fill and left your bones to the earth. There is a certain dignity in the circle of life. But human beings are pragmatic creatures. They do not just want your meat. They look at your massive, hollowed-out shell, and they get a brilliant idea. They carefully butcher your body, taking all the meat to feed their families. They scrape the inside of your shell until it is completely clean, and then they flip it back over. But they do not leave it there to rot. They drag your massive, bony dome to their campsite. They prop it up, dig a trench around it, and they crawl inside. That is right. They turn your corpse into a one-bedroom apartment. You spent your entire life carrying that incredibly heavy shell, sacrificing speed, intelligence, and comfort, just so a prehistoric caveman could have a cozy little tent to hide from the rain. Your evolutionary masterpiece, the ultimate defense mechanism, is now just a piece of cheap real estate for the very creatures that murdered you. They sit inside your shell, warm and dry, chewing on your roasted meat, while your spirit watches in absolute, profound disbelief. It is the ultimate insult. You are not just a victim of predation, you are a victim of prehistoric gentrification. Your body becomes furniture. Your majestic armor becomes a roof. This is what happens when you put all your evolutionary chips on raw physical defense. Muscle and bone will always be outsmarted by a cunning brain. So, let us take a moment to look back at the profoundly depressing life cycle of the Glyptodon. You spend your entire life dragging a boulder, only to become a camping tent. Please subscribe to Born to Suffer. Drop a like, leave a comment, and remember, brains always beat brawn.